I don't think I will ever love another footballer in the way that I love Bukayo Saka. The love that I have for him runs deep. And I am an Arsenal fan, as you can see, and we have had some iconic players wear this shirt. From Tony Adams to Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, Dennis Bergkamp, Liam Brady, Pat Rice, Ian Wright, and many, many others. But I swear to you, when it is all said and done, regardless of trophies and accolades, Bukayo Saka will go down as my favourite Arsenal player of all time. And I know, you're probably thinking, but why? Well, not to be cliche, but for me, football is about community. It's about bringing people together for a common cause. And I truly love Arsenal Football Club with my entire being. You cut me open and I quite literally bleed red. Not only that, but I used to live literally a bus ride away from Highbury Stadium and the Emirates Stadium. So Arsenal is all I've ever known my entire life. And as a fellow British Nigerian with a Yoruba name, my name is Orelua, I feel a sense of pride every time I see Bukayo Saka play for Arsenal. And that's because I see myself in him. During the Wenger years, the club scouted and signed many players from Africa when other top footballing clubs chose not to, and we'll get into the reasons for that a little later in this particular video. But because of that, Nigerians love Arsenal. I don't think you understand. Nigerians love Arsenal, and that connection has carried on for generations upon generations. Just go and ask Kanu. Even the meaning of Bukayo's name carries weight, because the literal definition, the literal meaning of Bukayo is adds to happiness. I mean, there is nothing a football fan loves more than when a youth team player rises through the ranks and becomes a fully fledged member of the first team. Imagine all of those years of hard work and sacrifice finally paying off and you make it to the very top. It must be one of the greatest feelings ever. Now Saka, he joined Arsenal at age 7 and he's practically been at the club his entire life. And when he first broke into the team, he came in and made an immediate impact. And I need you guys to remember, this was one of the lowest periods in recent history for Arsenal Football Club. We weren't good at all. That 2018 to 2021 period of Arsenal has been deleted from my mind. It was dark. We were not good at all. But he came into the team and he was one of the only individuals performing at a very high level despite his young age, and he just gets better and better with each year that passes. He played like a fan on the pitch and you could just tell that it meant that little bit more to him, and we've quite literally watched him grow from a boy to a man. We've seen the highs, we've seen the lows, we've seen the penalty miss, we've seen the lot. And I actually think, weirdly, that penalty miss that he had against Italy in the Euros is one of the best things that ever happened to him, because it helped catapult him into the wider public conversation, and even non-football fans were able to see why we love and adore this boy so much. And more than anything, more than all of that, he actually just seems like a really nice guy. The kind of guy you would want your daughter or your sister to bring home, and he's just a normal guy living out his dream, playing for the club that he loves. And I'm going to be honest with you, when he wore the captain's armband for the very first time, I might have shed a gangster tear or two, just a little one, because I felt proud of him like he was my own blood relative.
I've been Arsenal my whole life, so to wear that band was really special.
And this is a proud moment for that young man. Bukayo Saka leading out an Arsenal side as captain for the very first time.
And yes, football is about trophies, football is about accolades, football is about winning and medals, and I pray that he goes on to have a fruitful career and wins every trophy under the sun with Arsenal. And I know we Arsenal fans are protective over him, but there's just something about seeing one of your own put on the shirt and play with pride in the way that Bukayo does, that just feels so different and feels so special. Now, I'm very aware that that is very much a personal sentiment, and I know many other Arsenal fans love Bukayo Saka just as much as I do, but naturally they're going to put the likes of Ian Wright and Thierry Henry ahead of him when it comes to legendary status, and that's fine because it's not a competition. But there's something in the three names that I've just mentioned, and there's something that ties all three of them together so beautifully well, because without Thierry Henry there is no Bukayo Saka, without Ian Wright there is no Thierry Henry, without David Roscastle there is no Ian Wright, and without Paul Davis there is no David Rocky Roscastle. These iconic black footballers have paved the way in ways that supersede sporting achievement. In fact, Arsenal Football Club as an institution has historically been at the forefront when it comes to diversity and inclusion, and has often been colloquially referred to as the culture club. Now, this may be confirmation bias because I am a black Londoner, but I actually promise you, every time I step out in London, every time I go out in London, I always see people wearing Arsenal tops. Everywhere. Go to Carnival, go to the shops, go outside, you will see somebody wearing an Arsenal top. It's never a Chelsea top, it's never Fulham, it's never Tottenham, it's never West Ham. 90% of the time, I don't really have the data to back this up, but 90% of the time, it is an Arsenal top. In fact, quite literally, just the other day, I went out wearing this exact top, and the amount of people that stopped me to have a conversation about Arsenal was ridiculous. And it's not just London, because when I went to Paris last year, it was the exact same thing. A completely different country, but Arsenal's close connection with France via Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, and of course Sir Arsene Wenger still carries significant cultural cachet. So, what point am I trying to make? Well, initially, I was going to write an episode about why I feel Arsenal are often unfairly hyper-analysed and over-criticised by both the media and football fans in general. But in writing and researching that particular video, I decided to change the subject altogether. By the way, this is a two-part series, and the second part of this series will actually be about the unfair treatment that Arsenal get from the media and football fans. But I changed this particular video because I discovered, or realised rather, that Arsenal have a unique and somewhat special connection to black identity in Britain that I feel, just a personal observation, no other club has. Now, I'm not trying to make it seem like Arsenal are special and different from other football clubs, but I often find that there are undertones to how people speak about the club, and I think and feel that that is rooted in something far more sinister than the on-the-field performance. So, on today's episode, I'm attempting to answer one simple question. Why do Arsenal have so many black fans? Hi, my name is Ore. I am a presenter, broadcaster, cultural commentator, and all-round creative idiot. And welcome back to Small Talk. This is where I sit in my bed and I dissect the world of news, sport, entertainment, popular culture, music, and everything in between, but aim to dig that little bit deeper than beneath the surface. Everything in life is political. Music is political. Water is political. And football is political. Football is quite literally the biggest sport in the world, and its cultural dominance cannot be understated. And football is also a reflection of wider society. And there was a period in time where football in England was ugly. Absolutely ugly. English football has a long and painful history of racism. For much of the 20th century, black players were absent from the professional game, and when they did break through, they faced abhorrent abuse from the stands, the media, and sometimes from their own teammates as well. Monkey chants, bananas being thrown on the pitch, racist language was the norm in many stadiums across the country in the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, the 2000s, and still to the present day. And a lot of this racist behaviour and a lot of these chants went unchallenged, and the institutions within football offered little to no protection or tokenistic gestures to try and kick racism out of football. This was at a time where many black supporters felt alienated from attending football matches, knowing fully well that they were going to be subjected to some of the most horrific and horrible abuse that a human can experience. Football was simply not a safe space for black fans. Or better still, you could just say England at the time wasn't a safe space for black people altogether. This also coincided with the rise of the far right, and groups like the National Front played a disturbing role during this era, and they would use football matches as a platform to spread their racist propaganda and intimidate minority supporters. And I'm currently reading a book called Black Arsenal, which explores a lot of the themes that I'm going to discuss in this particular episode in far greater detail, far deeper, greater detail, and I'm going to reference this book quite a lot throughout this episode. So a massive shout out to the author of this book, Dr. Clive Mwaka, because it is a fantastic read. So England had a racism problem. What's new? I'm actually filming this video in the first week of September 2025, and in recent weeks here in England, the news has been dominated by anti-asylum seeker, anti-immigrant sentiment, and there have been protests, if you want to use that term. There have been protests by certain members of the public expressing their dissatisfaction with how the makeup of the country is changing. I'm trying to use my words very carefully here. Now, I don't want to go off on a tangent because that's not what this particular video is about, but I'm not somebody that will ever mince their words, and I'm very direct with what it is that I want to say. It's not anti-immigration, it's not anti-asylum seeker, it's racism. It's racism, and there is this disgusting level of racism that is continually seeping throughout this country, fueled by some of the most bad character, bad faith individuals, if you even want to call them that, who have loud voices within the media. And although I wasn't alive in the 70s and the 80s, I'm only 30 years old, I feel like a lot of those attitudes, those nasty, disgusting attitudes, have gotten louder and louder once again because of the disinformation and misinformation on social media. However, from a purely footballing perspective, Arsenal have proved to be the antithesis to this. The club's integration of black players was truly groundbreaking. Players like David Roscastle, Paul Davies, Michael Thomas, and of course later Ian Wright became icons not only just for their sporting and footballing talent, but also for what they represented off the pitch as well, showing black supporters that they too belonged in the heart of English football. In the book Black Arsenal, there is this beautiful story about a conversation that Kevin Campbell, God rest his soul, had with the then manager of Arsenal, George Graham, that really puts this connection into perspective. So it was the start of the inaugural Premier League season in 1992, and a huge mural was being erected at Highbury whilst reconstruction work was taking place on the stadium. George Graham brought the players to the stadium to see the mural, which seemed to only have the faces of the white players and supporters on it. Now, noticing the very clear lack of diversity and the absence of any diverse or black faces in the many rows of supporters in this mural, Kevin Campbell decided to approach the vice chairman, David Dean, and said these exact words to him. "Mr. Dean, where are my brothers?" So subtle, but very much understood, because that oversight was a bit of an embarrassment for David Dean, and he apologised profusely and promised that the mural would be changed. Fast forward to the second game of the season, that mural had been corrected to give a more accurate representation of the club's increasingly diverse fan base. Now that is how you use your voice. That identity is deeply rooted in the fabric of the club, and the club makes sure it does its absolute best to celebrate it. Arsenal's unique identity also lies in its roots in Islington. And I know somebody's going to watch this and going to make the tired and overly used joke of, but Arsenal were originally a South London club. You guys are from Woolwich, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Shut up. We've heard it before, okay? Get a new joke. But the borough has long been one of the most diverse and vibrant areas of London, shaped by waves of immigration and strong working class character. Communities from the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, Ireland, and beyond have settled in Islington over the decades, creating a cultural fabric that is unmistakably multicultural. I can't say that word. Unmistakably. How do you say that word?
Unmistakably.
Unmistakably, it's not only just Islington. You can add the neighbouring boroughs of Hackney, Haringey, Camden to this list as well. This diverse local community naturally shaped the makeup of Arsenal's fan base, and the club became a gathering point where different cultures and backgrounds could unite under one single identity. And I know this all sounds very kumbaya, hold hands, let's all dance around the campfire, but that really is the power of football, and Arsenal were able to provide a space in a sport that was once incredibly hostile to people that looked just like me. In the second episode of this Arsenal series, I touch on football's northern roots and how I feel, just me, northern clubs and the north of England has often dictated what is seen as right in football. And there are certain footballing attitudes that Arsenal, a club in a cosmopolitan, diverse city like London, challenge. And because Arsenal have always gone against the grain, I've often felt that the club has been spoken about in ways that other clubs simply aren't. By the way, if you have made it this far into this video, first of all, thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying it. There's a lot more that I want to discuss. And on my channel in recent months, I've basically spoken mainly around music, entertainment and popular culture, but sports is just as important. It is a massive part of my identity and is a massive part of my life, and I absolutely love it. So I will be speaking more about politics and the politics of sport on this channel, as well as doing the usual glossy entertainment bits as well, because a man has range. I can talk about multiple things and still find a through line between all of them. So if you are enjoying the video, I would absolutely love for you to subscribe. I would love for you to like it and let me know your thoughts in the comment section as well. It really helps with the visibility of this channel and allows me to continue making these wonderfully produced and pieced together video essays. So thank you. And now, back to Arsenal. Black players have been a key protagonist in the Arsenal story for the last 50 years. I think about Michael Thomas's last minute goal against Liverpool in the '89 championship, leading Arsenal to their first title in 18 years. I think about Thierry Henry, who is Thierry Henry. What more needs to be said? A transformative figure in Arsenal's history, and I'm going to speak about him and the Invincible team that he played in shortly in this particular episode. But if I am going to talk about iconic black protagonists in not only Arsenal history but in English history, there is only one man that I can speak about, and that man's name is Ian Edward Wright. Very few figures embody the spirit of Arsenal and its relationship with black identity more powerfully than Ian Wright. More than just a prolific goal scorer, Wright became a cultural icon representing a new era of visibility, pride and belonging for black supporters in English football. His journey from South London council estates to Arsenal legend made him not only a hero on the pitch, but also a beacon for communities that had long been marginalised within the game. And we all know Ian Wright's story. That's not what this particular video is about. I'm not going to give you an extensive breakdown. But for black supporters, not just Arsenal fans, Wright was more than just a striker. He was unapologetically himself. He was expressive, emotional, passionate and proudly black in a footballing world that often tried to suppress or stereotype such identities. His aura, his celebrations and his presence challenged the way that black players were spoken about in the media, and Wright demanded respect through brilliance and personality. Seeing Ian Wright succeed at Arsenal during an era where racism was still rife in English football created a powerful connection for black fans. He represented proof that we belonged as part of the game, not just as spectators, but as central figures in its history. Presence on the pitch cemented the bond between the club and black communities, offering representation that went beyond tokenism. And Wright wasn't simply just included, he was celebrated as the face of the football club. And Wright's importance didn't just end when he stopped playing football. As a pundit, as a mentor, as a public figure, Ian Wright has remained a prominent voice and face against racism and inequality in the game. His willingness to speak up about his experiences of discrimination whilst continuing to celebrate black culture and the women's game has made him both a role model and a vital advocate for change. And to this day, to this very day, he is still one of the faces of Arsenal. promo shoots, kit launches, the women's game, player signings, Ian Wright is always there, front and centre. In fact, the signing of Eze for Arsenal is so iconic in many different ways because Eze, a 27-year-old young black footballer being transferred from Crystal Palace to Arsenal at the exact same age that Ian Wright did the exact same move from Crystal Palace to Arsenal all those years ago, is one of the most beautiful stories. Wright's face and voice was front and centre for Eze's announcement, and I could probably make a calculated guess that Eze, a boyhood Arsenal fan, probably supports Arsenal because of characters like Ian Wright and Thierry Henry. And Ian Wright's significance to Arsenal and its black identity is profound. He was a trailblazer who turned talent into cultural influence, and in doing so, he redefined what Arsenal meant to a generation of football fans. And finally, we've got to talk about the Invincibles. The story of Arsenal's Invincibles is often told as a tale of footballing perfection. 38 games unbeaten in the 2003-2004 Premier League season, a record that still stands unmatched in top-flight English football. But beyond the stats and the silverware lies a deeper cultural significance. It was more about the way that Arsene Wenger built a team that embodied diversity and inclusivity. When Wenger arrived in 1996, he brought with him a philosophy that went far beyond tactics. He believed in building squads that reflected football's global nature, valuing skill, intelligence, and character over nationality or background. And this was at a time where many clubs still leaned heavily on British core values. And Wenger was the complete opposite of that. He was unapologetic about recruiting international and multicultural talent, and his Arsenal side became a reflection of London itself, cosmopolitan, vibrant and forward-thinking. And this approach reached its most symbolic moment on September the 28th, 2002, when Arsenal Football Club became the first English club to field 9 outfield black players in a single match against Leeds United. Thierry Henry, Sol Campbell, Laurent, Ashley Cole, Kolo Touré, Patrick Vieira, Gilberto Silva, Sylvain Miltord, Kanu. Arsene Wenger didn't care about colour, creed, race, religion, nationality. On that particular day, those 11 players that he picked, he deemed they were the best in training and they were the best for the job that needed to be done. And 9 of those players just so happened to be black. For black supporters and immigrant communities across London and beyond, this team was representation at the very highest level. And these players weren't just participants, they were leaders, they were the stars, and they were the faces of Arsenal's newfound dominance. Patrick Vieira becoming the captain of the club was also particularly significant because this was an era where black players were still fighting certain stereotypes within the game. Those stereotypes of lacking leadership qualities or lacking discipline. Well, Vieira stood tall as the heartbeat of the team, a commanding presence in midfield and a respected leader of men. And alongside him, Thierry Henry, his brilliance made him not just an Arsenal icon and an Arsenal talisman, but it made him a global black icon whose influence stretched far beyond football on the pitch. In fact, we as Arsenal fans, we as a club in general, we are still living off the impact of Thierry Henry to this day. I don't think you understand how impactful that man was to this club. The man has a statue outside the Emirates Stadium, and rightfully so, because there are still kids that grew up watching football that didn't watch Thierry Henry that would still put him as number 1 when it comes to the Premier League greatest player of all time. That is incredible. Arsene Wenger's Arsenal challenged the ingrained racism and xenophobia that had long shaped English football. It was precisely this blend of cultures and backgrounds that made this team so revolutionary. And the Invincibles proved that multiculturalism wasn't a weakness, but a strength, capable of producing the most dominant footballing achievement in Premier League history. Okay, Leicester was one of the greatest things of all time. But you get my point. You get my point. The Invincibles and Arsene Wenger's team proved that football at its highest level could be a mirror of society's diversity, and in doing so, they gave generations of fans, especially black fans, a team that they could see themselves in and a legacy that they can claim with pride. So that leads us to where we are today. As we've established, Arsenal has a symbiotic relationship with black identity and black culture. And of course, I don't want to make it seem like Arsenal are the only club that does this sort of thing. But Arsenal's my club. And it's one of the reasons why I became a supporter of this club. And that legacy continues because in the current squad this season, we have Bukayo Saka, Ethan Nwaneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Noni Madueke, Ebere Eze, Gabriel Jesus, Gabriel Magalhaes, Urian Timber, William Saliba, Christian Mosquera. Football is far more than 22 individuals on a pitch kicking around an inflatable ball. It's about a sense of belonging and reflecting the community that you reside in. And that's the reason why Arsenal have so many black fans. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked and enjoyed this video, you will definitely like this one. I've linked it somewhere here below. It is about how Britain failed Marcus Rashford. So click here on the screen to watch that video. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe because the next video that I'm going to post is about why Arsenal receive unfair treatment from the media. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.